Hello, I'm Msgr Jim Lisante. Today on Personally Speaking, I'll be joined by actor and filmmaker Nick Loeb. Nick co-wrote, co-directed, and stars in the new film Roe versus Wade. Please stay with us. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Msgr Jim Lisante. And actor and filmmaker Nick Loeb joins me now. Nick directs and stars in his newest movie. It's called Roe versus Wade, which takes an honest look at abortion. Nick co-directed and co-wrote Roe versus Wade alongside Kathy Allen. In the film, Nick plays Dr. Bernard Nathanson, a famous abortion doctor who later converted to the pro-life movement. The movie follows the events leading up to and beyond the landmark 1973 Supreme Court decision and also features the Academy Award-winning actor Jon Voight, the powerful actor Robert Davi, the great actor Steve Guttenberg, and Corbin Bernsen as well. Nick says that despite the film's subject matter, Roe versus Wade is not a conservative, religious, or even a pro-life film. It's a film, he says, that lays out the facts of how Roe versus Wade came to be. Joining me now, I'm so pleased to welcome to Personally Speaking, the actor and filmmaker, Nick Loeb. We are here talking to Nick Loeb. We're talking about his new picture called Roe versus Wade, on which he was the producer, the co-writer, as well as one of the stars. I feel, Nick, that we have 6 degrees of separation, you and I, in that I did the wedding for both of Steve Guttenberg's sisters. I just baptized Robert Davi's new baby, and you played Dr. Bernard Nathanson, and he was an old friend of mine. In fact, he was on this show when it was a television show, and we were also, Dr. Nathanson and I, we were filed the same lawsuit against us. Me, him, and Randall Terry was sued by NOW, National Organization for Women, and Planned Parenthood for leading demonstrations, and we were all fined and stuff. So you are my spiritual brother because you're playing Dr. Nathan.
No, I didn't know, but so wait, Steve, what did you do with Steve's sisters?
Both his sisters married Catholic guys, so I did the wedding.
Okay, because like Steve's Jewish, isn't he?
Yeah, Steve's Jewish, and I don't know who his latest wife, but Steve and I have been friends forever. When he's mostly spending time in New York, we get together regularly, but now he's back, I think, in California. So, but Steve's a great guy.
You should call Steve and tell him to come on your show.
We have had Steve on the show, but now that you have the movie with him, I'm going to have him back on the show to talk about why he loved being in Roe versus Wade, and I think it's great. Hey, you know, Steve knows, and you know that most people, when I talk about Roe versus Wade, give me this quizzical look. It's amazing how in the young generation, they really don't know too much about the case. They certainly don't know about Doe versus Bolton, the follow-up decision. Could you tell us, when you do a movie on Roe versus Wade, what is Roe versus Wade for the folks who are listening to a program like this, watching us, saying, what is that?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say, I don't think, not just the younger generation, I don't think, I mean, and I like to say it's the case that everyone's heard about, but nobody knows anything about.
Right.
And so, every American has heard of Roe v. Wade as the most famous court case in American history. But nobody really knows how it came to be and how it was decided. Definitely nobody knows that there was a companion case to it at all. That's why I set out to make a movie.
Yeah, to inform people on what was going on. Now, at the end of the day, it was a 7-2 decision for eliminating all restrictions on abortion everywhere. There were 2 who voted against it, one being Judge Rehnquist. And folks might be interested in knowing that the other justice who voted against Roe versus Wade was the college roommate of John Kennedy, Whizzer White, and he was a Democrat and considered to be a liberal Democrat. And yet he saw the move as a great injustice against the preborn child. But Nick, my question has to be, you know as well as I do that there are certain things you just can't talk about in America without huge divisions, huge controversy. Whenever I preach in church in any way about the right to life, I'm always going to have people going to write me hate letters. My point is, it's one of the most controversial moral issues, probably since slavery. Why would you, as a successful producer, writer, actor, want to get involved in this humongously controversial issue?
Because I'm crazy.
Oh,
You know, I tell you, it's interesting. First of all, I'm a filmmaker. I came really from the film side, not the faith side. I couldn't believe that, Hollywood makes movies on everything. I couldn't believe no one had really truly made a Hollywood movie on Roe v. Wade. Now, I know there was one in '89, but it was really the Norman McCorvey story. It had nothing really to do with the case and how it got there. No one had made the true story. So, I went to make it not necessarily because of the controversy, but because A, it was so famous, and B, when I learned about it, it was almost like an Oliver Stone-esque conspiracy movie like JFK. So
yeah.
I thought it was going to, from a filmmaker's perspective and a storyteller, I thought it was going to be fun and interesting. And so I don't know if you had a chance to see the film yet, but it's not a boring courtroom drama. It is, it's quite the ride.
Well, now for our folks around the country who, in fact, want to, like me, see this film, Nick Loeb is going to tell us, how do we see Roe versus Wade? Is it in movie houses? Is it online? How are you getting this powerful film out there?
Sure. So it's going to be, with COVID, everything sort of shut down. So like a lot of the studios, we're going to be streaming the film. It comes out April 2nd on Amazon, iTunes, Google Play. People have cable or satellite, it'll be on demand. So just like, any other movie that's released today, and it comes out on Good Friday.
Oh, that's great. What a powerful image that is, huh? I want to talk about you and what you play. Nick Loeb is not only producing and co-writing, but he's also acting a major part in the film of Dr. Bernard Nathanson. For our watchers and listeners, Nick, tell us a little bit about who is Dr. Bernard Nathanson?
So we had to tell Roe, we can't just go and make a movie about a court case. It's very boring. When you make movies today, you have to make them about characters and people. Yeah. And so we had to find somebody who we could follow through this. And also to make movies interesting, you need to find characters that have an arc in their life or their storyline. And so we told the story of Roe v. Wade through the eyes of Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who's the protagonist in the movie. Dr. Bernard Nathanson was the most prolific abortionist in American history. Him and his clinics oversaw over 70,000 abortions. And your audience is like, oh my God, why are we telling the movie from the aspect of an abortionist? Because we really find out what happens. And so we follow really his life. He was also one of the founders of NARAL, the National Association to Repeal Abortion Laws. He was instrumental in getting Roe passed. His best friend essentially was father of the abortion movement, a guy named Larry Lader. And we watch him and we watch them and their journey to get Roe passed. Now, in 1974, the year after Roe was passed, when new sonogram technology got better, Bernard performed an abortion under new sonogram technology, realized he was killing babies, and eventually converted and became pro-life, came out and wrote several books on how we got everything passed and all the lies and the manipulation that they were involved in to do so. And then I think in 1994, he was baptized by Cardinal O'Connor at St. Patrick's Cathedral, which we shot this scene. We were the only movie, I think, in American history to be allowed to shoot scenes inside St. Patrick's Cathedral on Fifth Avenue, including the baptism scene.
Now, going back to that baptism and his conversion, I was on a boat ride once for a fundraiser for Homes for Unwed Mothers, and Dr. Nathanson was there, and he gets up to speak, and he says, I used to call myself a Jewish atheist, and then I came slowly to believe there is a higher power, a God, and now I think probably the best manifestation of that God is Jesus Christ, so my next stop likely will be to become a Catholic Christian. And Cardinal O'Connor got up, as was his way, and he said, I appreciate the beautiful story of your conversion. He said, but frankly, to this movement, the pro-life movement, you're worth much more as an atheistic Jew than one more Catholic doctor,
Which is interesting that you say that, because, one of the characters in the movie felt the same way. And so one of the lead, so Bernard Nathanson is sort of the lead on the pro-choice side in the movie. The lead on the pro-life side is Dr. Mildred Jefferson.
Right. Sure.
Now, for those of your listeners who don't know who she was the first African-American woman to graduate from Harvard Medical School.
Right.
And she was the second president of National Right to Life. And although she was a Baptist, her whole position was we need to take God out of the argument if we're going to win. It's about science. Life begins at conception. I'm a doctor. I know that.
Yeah.
and her thought was that was the best way to win is like you said, she was much more valuable fighting the science as a Catholic. And I think that's where sort of I came into play. I wasn't raised, well, I kind of was raised Catholic, but so my father was Jewish, my mother Episcopalian, I was raised by an Irish Catholic nanny. So, I get it from all sides, but I really grew up mostly agnostic. I now have a lot of belief in God, but I didn't really grow up in that world. And I also grew up pro-choice. And I was pro-choice because I grew up in New York, and I was taught that when a woman, I'm 45, when a woman gets pregnant, there's just a clump of cells. There's not a life there. And so I also went through a conversion in my life. And I think that brings, not necessarily my conversion, but I think it brings, it's a little easier to talk to people, not saying I'm a Catholic and blah, 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 and try to push my views from a religious perspective. But I truly I like Mildred Jefferson from a scientific perspective. I like Google it, listen to a sonogram.
Yeah.
There's a baby there. And I tell everyone, I made this movie. Also, if you see the movie, it's not a faith-based preaching movie. I made a sort of down the middle movie because I didn't want to alienate the other side. I wanted the ability to reach across the aisle, talk to those in the middle, those on the fence, maybe even pro-choicers. And even after the movie, if they don't change their opinion in mine, the only thing I want them to come away with at the end of the day, to understand that there's a baby there. And if they see the baby and they still are going to say it's okay to abort the baby, so be it. But at least they understand the ramifications of what they're doing, because I think we've come to a society where I think it's horrible, where you have a small segment of the society are proud of their abortions. The organizations will shout your abortions. Women getting out there from Hollywood and saying, I'm having a dozen abortions and I'm excited and I want to celebrate them. Whether you believe in abortion or not, it's not a good thing, right? It's horrible. And I want and it's a tough, difficult subject and a tough, difficult thing a woman goes through. I don't think it should be glorified.
Right. I totally agree with you. And I'm glad you mentioned, sometimes people say to me, well, you have to believe in the whole pro-life thing, right? Because you're Catholic. And I say, if I were agnostic or atheist, I still believe it's wrong because it's about human life and science. And I love Mildred Jefferson. I knew Mildred, and I thought she was right in saying, let's remove the religious aspect of this. Even with Biden right now, he's for the full 9 months to abortion. And people say, well, how can he be that as a Catholic? And I say, how can he be that for that as a human being? Forget about the religion part of it. There are Catholics who believe in abortion, Catholics who don't. The church obviously is against it, but that's not the point. As you say, it's human life. I love in my parish when people are expecting a child or grandchild, and they show me these sonogram pictures that now with 3D science is unbelievable. You can see the kids, everything, and to make out this beautiful face. Well, as you say, how do you ignore the humanity of that baby in the womb? And it's interesting, the schizophrenia in America, and that when they want a baby, they're showing pictures of this kid in the womb, and it's beautiful, and this is my grandchild, my grandson, my granddaughter. But man, if they don't want it, it's not a person, not a human being. Let me ask you this. You got involved with this movie, or you got her involved, Alveda King. Could you tell our folks, who is she, and why is that so important?
So Dr. Alveda King is the niece of Martin Luther King. And so, I reached out to Alveda because I wasn't in the pro-life movement. Right. I was getting into it, but I didn't really have a lot of relationships there. I had my own pro-life fight. But so I reached out, when I started to make this movie, I reached out to Alveda and I said, you're one of the leaders in the pro-life movement that I truly respect. And I'd love if you'd be interested in coming on and helping me get this made as a producer. I'm going to tell you a funny story, actually. She'll probably kill me if I tell you this. But she, I get a call back from Alveda. I didn't even know she didn't know me. It was sort of a cold call. And I left her a message or sent her an email. My phone rings, I pick up. It's Dr. Alveda King. She's like, hi, Nick, I got your message. I'd love to be in your movie.
Yeah, okay. What part is that?
Yeah, would love to have you doing it. And so, she's so funny and so hysterical. So we wrote in a role for her where she plays the mother of Dr. Mildred Jefferson in this in this one scene, and she's really fabulous. She actually even quotes, as her character quotes her uncle Martin Luther King. But it's a great scene. Vito has been tremendously helpful in helping us get this made as a producer in all aspects, from advising us to raising money to promoting it to doing screen. Wow. I mean, she's been one of our strongest supporters and been really great for us.
And it makes great sense, too, to me that if you look back at the civil rights movement and the whole history of our country in terms of African Americans, we had so depersonalized them that we took human beings and said they weren't really human beings. That's actually what we came from in this culture of slavery. And in the same way, we're doing that with the unborn child. Well, it's not really a person. And yet everyone who wants a baby knows, oh, sure it is. This is my child. Let me ask you, it's not a surprise to you what I'm going to say to you, but overwhelmingly, folks in the popular secular media are pro-choice, and that's why. And frankly, I was surprised. You had a really, I thought, fair-minded interview. Was at the Hollywood Reporter, where they let you speak and present your point of view without twisting it around and making you sound like a crazy. But by and large, I'm not sure you're going to get the best hearing from the people, as Donald Trump would call them, the fake news industry. So, what are you doing to get the word out there, aside from shows like ours? Or do you find in dealing with the people in secular media that there's at least a willingness to hear your side of telling the story?
I think some yes and some no. I mean, I've come across in our promotion, people saying there's no way I'm going to review your movie or talk about your movie, or I'm not going to put it on. I would, to be quite honest, rather they come out and bash my movie than ignore my movie. And so, I mean, I'm doing a lot of shows and a lot of interviews on the Christian Catholic front. Yeah. But I would love to have the secular media cover us, even if they want to trash us, or, because the more they trash us, the more our side fights back. Yeah. Right. And the more our side fights back, I mean, there's an old adage, all press is good press. Right. And I think, and my goal really is not to preach to the choir. Right. If I can get on, secular media and say, listen, guys, give it a chance. It's not a faith-based movie. It's not going to preach to you. Yes, are you going to capture those in the pro-choice movement? No, but they're all, like, the majority of my friends are pro-choice. Yeah, but they're not involved in the pro-choice movement. They're like, I'm probably pro-choice. It's not. They're not adamant one way or another. And for those people, I'll give you an example. Even one of them, most of the people in my film, the actors, even the conservatives, are pro-choice. I had one actor who was actually a liberal. I can't tell you who he is because he converted during the making of the movie, and he's now pro-life. And I have a lot of my friends, most of my friends are liberals because of where I work and where I live. And I, I've shown them the movie, and because they're in my home or they're friends. And I have a half a dozen that have either taken pause, who've changed their mind, who are on the fence. It's really made them think. And if I could do that to the moderates somewhere in the middle, I think, we can put a dent in this.
Nick Loeb is our guest. His movie is called Roe versus Wade. Nick, in playing Dr. Bernard Nathanson, I'm thinking back to, I knew Adele, his wife, but she's gone to God. And I knew his son, Joe. I'm not sure if he's still around. Do you have any folks who knew Bernard to inform you about the kind of man he was?
I didn't. I talked to a lot of people in the movement who knew him, like you. We read his books. I think Adele is still alive.
Oh, okay.
I think Adele, and from what I told, and because Adele is actually, I did speak to her briefly. Okay. But that was his third wife. He ended up having 4 wives.
Wow.
He divorced Adele later in life and had, I think, a younger wife in the last couple of years. So,
a colorful character. He was a colorful character.
Quite a character. And I truly feel that I got a true sense of him. I read all his books. I read his interviews. I mean, we even use some of the interviews verbatim. I mean, the movie opens and closes with an interview he gave to the Washington Post that we use word for word. And it's a very interesting interview because he admits he lied, and he admits he lied, and he admits that he lied the whole time.
Nick, you play this doctor who also made, and I wouldn't want our folks not to hear about this, made 2 of the most powerful documentaries out there, The Silent Scream about early abortion and Eclipse of Reason about late-term abortion. Do those films still exist? Are they available to people to see?
Yeah, I mean, you can get The Silent Scream. I think you can get it on Amazon or download it. It's online. The last one, I'm not sure, but it's out there. But the Silent Scream has been so famous.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Even around the world, people have heard The Silent Scream.
With Eclipse of Reason, the introduction was done by Charlton Heston, and his argument was, we have on Channel 13, on PBS, on many stations, surgeries that we show every detail of the surgery. And he said, the largest surgery in America is abortion. Why are we afraid to show what happens every day in America, both in early and late-term abortion? And it was a great argument, but I think, again, it was playing to the audience, as you say, those who are already converted. What you're doing is trying to reach out to a wider audience. There was an earlier film, Nick, called Gosnell, about Dr. Gosnell and his butchery of late-term abortions. Did that succeed? And if it didn't succeed, why is Roe versus Wade going to succeed?
I think Gosnell had a lot of challenges. I think I know the creators very well, and they're great guys. I think they had multiple challenges. I think one, they weren't really tied into the Christian Catholic pro-life movement here in America.
Yeah.
And I don't think they got the movie out and marketed properly within those communities, and nobody really heard of it and knew about it. I think that was one challenge. I think the other challenge was, I think the way it was marketed and presented, I can't remember the title, but the title was like Gosnell, the biggest serial killer in America.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I don't know anything about Gosnell and I see that title, I think it's a horror movie.
Right.
And so, I think that was challenging. I think that was very challenging too, the marketing of that. And I think, those were some of the obstacles in the movie. It's a very sad story.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they got it told and they got it out there. And these guys are great filmmakers. And, but I think a lot of the marketing was challenging to get that out there. I mean, if you look at on the opposite side, Unplanned,
mm-hmm.
which came out a couple of years ago, they did phenomenal, right?
Yeah,
they did phenomenal. They really hit the ball out of the park, and a lot of it had to do was the way they positioned it, the way they told the story. They set up screenings, mm-hmm. They went around, and they were very influential in media. They also had more money. They also had a lot more money to spend on advertising and marketing, and so. And also, and I think, and they did such a great job, and they didn't even have any, really famous actors at all. I mean, Gosnell had Dean Cain. But, I think, one of the things that we have going for us is we've got, between, Jon Voight and John Schneider and Steve Guttenberg and Robert Davi and Joey mm-hmm. Lawrence and Stacey Dash. We have this incredible cast of people that are, and a lot of these films are driven by their cast. So I think that can be generally helpful. And I think everybody has heard of Roe v. Wade. I think the only challenge that we do have with the film and the marketing side is, mm-hmm. I would say everybody, the majority of people who hear about it, the immediate reaction is they think it's a documentary.
Yeah.
And they don't understand it's a feature narrative film and no different than any other film they may see in a movie theater. But immediate reaction. So hopefully, once it's out on iTunes and they can watch the trailer, mm-hmm. if they want,
Nick Loeb is our guest, producer, writer, star of Roe versus Wade. Final question, Nick. I promise that I'll let you get on with your day and take care of that cough of yours. Here's my question. It takes a lot of chutzpah, I think, to go into a field where you're going to probably even lose a few friends along the way. Already done. And you're taking the challenge. Where is it in Nick Loeb? Where does this come from, this capacity to say, I'm going to tell my truth. I hope you like me, but if you don't, I'm okay with that?
It's always been my personality, love me or hate me.
Wow.
There's never been a middle ground with me. So, that's always been it's just been who I've always been.
Good. I hope you never change then. I want to thank Nick Loeb for being with us, and I hope all of our listeners and watchers will watch Roe versus Wade. I'm going to ask Nick at the end of the show just to tell us one more time how to find it, but we all need to be better informed about what went into, what's the history behind Roe versus Wade, not just the decision, but the lies, deceptions, misleading stories that were fed to the American people to help them embrace unrestricted abortion, which has now responded. What you say here in one of your quotes here, you said over 60 million unborn children lost to America, and that's not even counting those around the world because of unrestricted abortion. Nick, thank you for your courage. Thank you for telling a story that needs to be told. We're going to hope to do whatever we can to see that everyone is informed, both pro-choice and pro-lifers, to see a film that helps us to better understand where we are today as a divided America. And maybe we should be divided until we come to some recognition that all life is sacred, including that of every single child in the womb, and as well as respect for their moms and dads. So, Nick, thank you for everything you're doing, and keep on keeping on. Keep the chutzpah flowing.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate it. And to answer your question, so people can find out more at RoeVWadeMovie.com.
Yes.
And the movie comes out April 2nd, but there are a lot of groups and organizations doing pre-screenings.
Good.
In churches. Some are doing virtual, some are doing in theaters, and they can sign up at RoeVWadeMovie.com and fill out the form and send it in, and we'll set them up with a screening.
Now, let me ask you, Nick, for a parish like mine, 3,000 families of many senior citizens who are still attached to their DVDs will come out in that format too?
It will come out in DVD, I think the second or third window. So I don't know, like 90 days after release.
Okay.
90 or 180 days after release, it'll be in DVD, and you can get it online or get it in Walmart or Target and Best Buy and things like that.
Okay, thank you so much, Nick. Folks around the world, please listen to Nick and please watch Roe versus Wade. Thank you again for your courage, Nick.
Thank you, Father.
As we end today's program, I want to thank you all for being with us. I ask you to write to me if you want to at personallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com. To listen to our Personally Speaking podcast with some of our most recent shows, please go onto YouTube and search under Personally Speaking with Msgr Jim Lisante, and don't forget to click like and subscribe. Personally Speaking is also available as a podcast on personallyspeakingpodcast.buzzsprout.com. You can also listen to past episodes by going on www.closeencountertv.com and clicking on the radio button at the top of the page. Additionally, Personally Speaking episodes are on my parish website, which is www.ollmp.org on the homepage. Personally Speaking is also on Facebook at Personally Speaking with Msgr Jim Lisante. Thanks so much for being with us. We look forward to being with you again on Personally Speaking. I'm privileged to serve as host and executive producer of Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Jandovitz. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.